So my name is Olha. I'm an exchange student that is taking part in Erasmus program, and today's topic that I will be discussing is propaganda and disinformation in modern media. So as you can tell, this is a very wide topic that can be discussed for a very long time. And I'll be speaking mainly about propaganda in modern social media networks and mostly about my experience and experience of my country with propaganda, because as a person from a country that is currently at a hybrid war, it's easier for me to describe such topic from a perspective of happening events, as I've had enough experience of seeing the bright examples of propaganda on social media and how masses of people of different age, social status, or residence can be affected by it. So that's why I'll be using such examples. So, propaganda is a systematic attempt to influence beliefs or behavior through false or manipulative information, often to support a particular ideology or political goal. Disinformation as a component of propaganda is a strategically planned distribution of false or manipulative information with the aim of influencing public opinion, behavior, or decision making. This process is an important element of information warfare and is used to achieve political, military, economic, or social goals. In democratic societies, informed decision making is essential. However, modern propaganda can manipulate public discourse, sway elections, and undermine the democratic process by spreading misinformation, suppressing dissenting voices, or polarizing communities. Recognizing and countering propaganda helps safeguard the integrity of democratic institutions and promotes transparency in governments. The issue of propaganda is especially acute for a country that is at war. The armed conflicts that take place today are closely related to the content published in social networks, because the outcome on the battlefield directly depends on the opinion and mood of the population. That's why Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022 became one of the most vivid examples of information warfare that humanity has ever seen. In the first months of the war, people who found it difficult to believe that this was actually happening were the most influenced by propaganda and were easier to manipulate than now. When a person finds themselves in extreme circumstances, they feel fear and hopelessness. They try to subconsciously grasp for information that gives them hope that everything will be all right. On the part of the Ukrainians, everyone who survived the beginning of the war knows how much fear conquers a person. Each person was sure that they were not influenced by propaganda. But the truth is that the wave of information that flooded the internet at that moment strongly influenced everyone's opinion. At the time, completely unrealistic predictions about the quick end of the war with victory and statistics about the huge losses of the enemy were everywhere, and people believed in it because it was necessary for them. When the event that will dramatically change one's life occurs out of nowhere, the first thought the person has is that it should come to an end as soon as possible, even if it's not possible at all. On the other hand, the population easily succumbed to panic and believed in numerous informational attacks from the Russian side, starting with the fact that multicolored flyers that appeared on residential buildings the day before the start of the war were reference points for bombers, and ending with the possibility of nuclear strike. And as you can see on this slide, there was such fires on the streets of Kyiv, and people were spreading rumors that it was actually like the flyers that told that people can be paid by sharing the information of Ukrainian troops, their direction and placement. And after 2 years looking at society's reaction to the beginning of the war, we can conclude that no one is really immune to propaganda and everything is decided by circumstances. In general, there is an opinion that Russian propaganda machine is much stronger due to the fact that money is invested in it from the state budget and say spread it in all social networks. The most effective method of demoralization currently used in Russia is the comments that they leave on the Ukrainian-speaking part of the internet from the faces of Ukrainian citizens, spreading the idea of need for surrender. It is difficult for an ordinary user to distinguish the comments of a person who sincerely expressed his opinion from a narrative that is distributed to order. The second option can be evidenced by, first, the mass of comments with similar message used vocabulary and general similarity of messages. And second, typical mistakes if person who wrote the message doesn't use their native language. One way or another, this method of propaganda has a strong influence on the mood and opinion of the population, and as a result, due to such an effective method of disinformation, the enemy will have an advantage. This phenomenon affects not only people who live on the territory of one of the two countries, because it spreads through publicly available internet resources, so even people who became refugees in other countries to escape war suffer from it. Russian propagandists have found various ways to turn residents of European countries against Ukraine and its citizens. Among other things, they use support and assistance group for Ukrainian migrants who left their home due to Russian aggression. They are trying to attach the image of brazen idlers who travel in search of high social benefits to Ukrainians. In addition, propagandists spread narratives about the reluctance of Ukrainians to resist the invasion of Russia and the need to reconcile with aggressor. An interesting observation is how the narratives of propaganda and the nature of disinformation can differ depending on the social media on which the messages are published. This depends on the demographic characteristics of each social network and the content that is more attractive and believable to each group. The meta policy allows any user, even a novice, to easily, quickly, and inexpensively place advertising messages and target them to a certain audience. The Russians have used this commercial tool as a weapon, registering new Facebook profiles almost daily and using advertising to spread fakes, disinformation, and manipulation amongst Ukrainians. Such profiles spread misinformation about the adoption of new amendment in legislation and false news about the war. Such profiles often look like a reliable source of information, but their purpose is to manipulate public consciousness and create chaos. They publish fake news to sow distrust in government decisions, promote division in society, and mislead citizens about the real state of affairs. Users are advised to check information from reliable sources and be careful with suspicious news. In addition to propaganda, the same profiles post fraudulent messages about non-existent additional payments to pensioners, military families, and internally displaced persons. They require to send them card information in order to get people's personal data. Another social media platform which is frequently used to spread propaganda narratives and disinformation is X, Twitter before rebranded. But unlike Facebook, messages published on Twitter should be more sophisticated and valid to convince the audience that they are intended for sincerity and trustfulness. The younger generation who have been exposed to misinformation on the internet for most of their conscious lives are trained to distinguish real people from spam bots. Nevertheless, if a person falls for one of numerous informational attacks, it has a great influence on their worldview and opinion about the situation. And now, with the increase in spread of these demoralizing messages, you can see many young people who often use the social networks, including Twitter, to adopt this worldview and start sharing the same thoughts. This is one of the propaganda means, when the narrative begins to exist separately from the customer or the original source. When the audience for whom this message is published believes in it, they themselves begin to spread it. This is a dangerous phenomenon because the real people begin to believe propaganda. When real people begin to believe propaganda, their relatives, friends, and social circle are more easily influenced by them than by the opinions of strangers from internet. Telegram is another popular tool to spread false information and rumors due to its privacy policy. This messenger is the most used among Ukrainians, so spreading propaganda there is quite effective. The ability to remain anonymous and the strong encryption features of Telegram allows propagandists to operate with reduced risk of identification or censorship. This encourages the spread of radical views, hate speech, and calls to action that might be suppressed on more regulated platforms. State-sponsored media, military groups, and independent actors use these channels to share updates, patriotic content, and ideological messages. Telegram's role in Russian-Ukrainian war underscored the significant impact of modern communication technologies on conflict dynamics. The platform's features facilitate the rapid dissemination of propaganda, influencing public opinions and shaping the narrative of the war. While Telegram provides a valuable communication tool, it also necessitates vigilant efforts to counteract the spread of misinformation and propaganda. As a conclusion, there are many ways we can be affected by propaganda, and it's unlikely to be able to escape from it. So every and each of us is influenced by it in some shape or form. So what people can do to minimize spreading disinformation further and save their very own view of things? There are some ways people can be sure about the content they consume. First is, of course, fact-checking. Fact-checking has emerged as a crucial tool in the fight against disinformation, providing a means to verify the accuracy of information and counter false narratives. Fact-checking is a vital strategy in combating disinformation, helping to ensure that accurate information prevails in public discourse. Second way is developing and deploying AI algorithms to detect the flag potentially false information on social media platforms. These systems can help identify patterns of disinformation and reduce its spread. Third is users' moderation of social media platforms. There is a new feature being tested on X right now. With it, people that are noticing a post that consists misinformation can inform moderator about it. And if this information appears to be false, the following post will be shown in user's feed with postscript with true facts about the topic. Another way is holding social media platforms accountable for the spread of disinformation by requiring them to implement effective moderation policies and transparent reporting mechanisms. Finally, fostering international cooperation to tackle disinformation across borders, as many campaigns are global in nature. Share best practices, intelligence, and strategies among countries. Unity is very important, especially today when global peace is being teared apart by numerous political conflicts. I have a hope that someday humanity will come to the point where one's individual life has bigger value than borders and there will no longer be need in influencing people's minds. But before that, we should remember that we should form our worldview on our very own conclusions and morals. Thank you.